Welcome to another edition of the Hockey Writers Podcast season preview shows. Today, we are joined by Marcus Ashpaugh to talk about the St. Louis Blues. As always, I'm your host, Kyle Knopp, with my co-host, Matthew Zator. And let's jump right into it. First off, Marcus, thank you for joining us today. We're happy to have you on, talk a little Blues hockey.
Yeah, so let's get after it.
Let's get after it, absolutely. Let's start with the forwards and two new acquisitions that came in this summer, Noel Acciari and Josh Leivo. So what are your expectations for Acciari and Leivo heading into this season?
Acciari's, these are going to be two bottom six guys for sure. Acciari's going to be your fourth line center. That was kind of his role, kind of bouncing in and out of the lineup last year anyways. So, Blues haven't really had a solid, consistent fourth line center after they traded Sundqvist. It was just kind of trying to fill in the blanks after that. So he's going to come in, just kind of grind for him, be physical out there. Leivo, probably a bottom line guy, fourth line, bouncing between fourth line and the bench, just kind of depending on the matchup for that night. Expectations, I wouldn't say are necessarily high, but he came in cheap. He's got a little bit of potential. And that's kind of everything that's kind of all that they could do this season was just try to find, 1 year guys, just low AAV, just trying to take a chance on somebody, hoping they strike it. But I mean, expectations, I wouldn't say were high, but those are probably their biggest, I guess, newest additions, from this offseason. So kind of a bummer in that aspect, but at the same time, I mean, they're returning a lot of guys. So
yeah.
You didn't necessarily have to make that splash.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I'm familiar with Josh Leivo, who used to play in Vancouver here for about a season, and he looked good at certain times. He was playing, with Pettersson in the second line at times, and scored in his first game in Vancouver. So, I liked his potential, but ultimately never came back from Vancouver there. But I'd still think he's a really good, good bottom six guy. He can pop in some goals, he gets a chance, and is pretty well-rounded defensively too. So he's not going to hurt you out there. So I'm okay. Leivo's a really good addition to any team. And like you said, he's probably just going to be going in and out of the lineup. Probably won't be a consistent guy, but when he's there, he'll be effective for sure.
Sure.
Okay, let's get to some bigger names and talk about their young superstar, Jordan Kyrou. Very fast forward. I've always liked him ever since he was drafted. Very good player. And breakout season last year at, I believe, 78 points, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
I know it was over 70 points.
Yeah.
So was that a flash in the pan? Like sometimes these young guys get a good season and all of a sudden they go down.
Right.
Is that just the start of the greatness for Kyrou?
I think it really was the start. It really was a tale of two halves for him. First half for the All-Star break, I mean, he was just on fire. I think he was at if you project it out to the full season, I think he was looking around like at least 35 goals. And that's just if he kept the current pace that he was at from the first half into the second half. And, after the fastest skater thing, it was cool, but it felt like something just changed. Just slipped up, man. The game started slipping up. Just really lost some consistency. Was rough in the defensive zone. And you could see him out there just kind of, it seemed like he just started thinking a whole lot. Stopped moving his feet, just kind of held onto the puck. I thought he was, holding onto the puck an extra second to make a play, and it just was a little too much rather than just going with his instincts and taking the shot. So I think for him to put it all together, he just has to remain consistent and just keep being aggressive. And I think that, he could, I think it was 70. Yeah. So like you said, 75, 78 points, something like that. I think he could
75,
be up to,
double check. 75. Yeah.
Close enough. Rounded up.
I was close. 75 points. Yeah.
But I think, if he could just stay consistent, he wouldn't have had a problem putting up 80, 85, 90 points. He just had too many gaps, too many lulls, in his performance to hit that mark. But yeah, I think this is a good jumping off point for him. And as long as, like I said, as long as he can stay consistent and get a little bit better in the defensive zone, maybe up the power play a little bit. No reason he couldn't go higher than what he did this year.
Yeah, he had 7 goals in the playoffs too. So
yeah, and I mean he's got that speed that is kind of decisive or deceptive too a little bit, so he can get that extra step around defensemen and create space in the offensive zone. And I think with David Perron being gone, I think he'll have a chance to kind of jump into that power play a little more this season as well.
For sure.
All right, let's talk about another big name. Robert Thomas just signed a huge contract this season, $8.125 million average annual value. So is he going to live up to it in your eyes, Marcus?
Yeah, I think that he's got a good shot too. It really is just how you want to look at his game. Whenever people think of, a lot of the guys making the top money on the team, you think, oh, they're putting up, 30 goals, 35 goals, every single season. That's just, I really don't think that's in his wheelhouse. He could do it, but he's always going to look to pass first. Just always. That's just what he is. That's who he is. So, he put up, I think 20, might have been right around 20, maybe 25 goals last year, somewhere in that range. I think that's kind of where he's going to be.
Yeah.
He could scratch, 30 if they needed him to, but I just think he's too good with the puck. He's just too good at facilitating and moving the puck around that you don't need him to score 25, 30, 35 goals. If he's putting up 25 and 65, 70 assists, I mean,
yeah.
I think that's what they're going to get from him. And I think at that point, for sure, with the money, for sure.
Absolutely. I agree. I think he's going to be a huge contributor this season as well.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's just with the running rate of forwards like that. Yeah. 8 million is not.
Yeah. How many 8 million Tim Stutzel or however, I'm sorry. I butchered his name.
Yeah.
Stutzel, I mean, just today got around the same, I think was like 64 million or something like that. Like, very similar.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just, you have to pay these guys, and that's to lock them up. And that's just how it goes. So I think he'll end up living up to it too. I really, again, another player I've really liked over the years as he's developed. So I think he's going to really hit that, and no one's going to really complain about that number as the contract goes on. So,
right.
Let's talk about a guy that they traded for last, I believe it was traded. Pavel Buchnevich, who from the New York Rangers, great first season in St. Louis. I mean, career high 30 goals, 76 points. Do you think he stays there at that level, or does he regress?
I think that he's going to have to. I think he can stay at that level. I don't really see a regression just because he was pretty consistent all last season. And, like what every Blues article is going to come out, like what every Blues conversation is going to be is David Perron's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, he only put up, I think, like 57 points last year in 60-some games, but the power play was crucial, and we wouldn't have made it anywhere in the playoffs without him. So they're going to have to fill that void somewhere, and I think he's going to be the guy to do it. He just seems like he's the one that is going to take the step up, and they're going to ask more of. But I mean, I love the way he played last year. We just haven't had a player like that who can score from anywhere on the ice. He's big, he's physical, he's going to be in everybody's face. And he's great. He's great, moving the puck around too. I mean, I think that's a very underrated part of his game. He's not going to burn anybody through the zone, but I mean, he's got a nice stick. I think that he has a chance to repeat and to exceed the numbers from last year.
He was one of my dark horses heading into last season to having a breakout campaign with his new team. And I think, he most certainly did. I thought he fit in really well in St. Louis and really complements the line that he plays with. So I agree. I don't think there's going to be a regression, or if there is, it's really not going to be much that St. Louis fans are going to have to worry about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed.
Speaking of 20-plus goal scorers, the Blues return 9 forwards that scored 20-plus goals last season. So do you think that Tarasenko, Thomas, Buchnevich, Kyrou, Barbashev, Shen, Saad, O'Reilly, and Thomas can all hit 20 plus.
Oh, I hit
again.
Thomas twice.
Oh, did I? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, that's where you
Thomas
get
is
the
so
nine.
good. He gets
Thomas
two
is so
names.
good. He had 40. Sorry about that, Marcus. Do you think
It's
those
8. It's 8.
eight
Because
players?
Perron would have been the 9.
That's
right.
what it was. I knew there was 9 in the. Okay, let's start over. Do you think those 8 forwards will be able to hit 20 goals each this season?
I think that's a super high mark, man. I mean,
It's a lot.
If you followed the Blues at all, they talked about that nonstop last year, and I mean, it's a great stat. Don't get me wrong. It just kind of got beaten over the head with it. I mean, I don't think so. That's really hard to do, man. I mean, obvious guys to not do it. Barbashev kind of. I mean, he was always projected to be more like a 15 goal scorer. You could scratch 20. I think he got like 26 last year, and he was just super hot to start. Kind of came out of nowhere with, they just kept calling it, the Russian line because it was him and Buchnevich and Tarasenko, and they flowed well, but then they hit a rut, and it was just in the trash. So, and then he just kind of regressed back to his mean a little bit after that. So, I could see him, getting back down below the 20 mark. And Ryan O'Reilly, great player. I love Ryan O'Reilly, but that's just not. I think he scored right at 20 or 21. No, his game's not dependent on it, but he's still going to get 18 or 19. So, I mean, if just 2 less, he had 21, so 2 less, he's at 19 and below the mark, and then nobody cares about the number.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough to do it. I don't think that they'll do it again, but they still should have 5 or 6 at least. Yeah,
that's still pretty good.
I mean,
some teams don't even have 1. So
yeah, to have 5 or 6, I mean, that's 120 goals right there just from 2 lines of forwards. That's pretty big.
Yeah. Well, you answered the question, the regression one in that. So we'll move on to the next one. Who, they're going to have some major UFAs coming up, and these are big guys. Ryan O'Reilly, Vladimir Tarasenko, and Ivan Barbashev. Do you see any of those 3 getting dealt at the trade deadline, or are they pushing to kind of re-sign one or all 3?
I think if they're not contending at the deadline, if they're close, they're not going to do anything. None of these guys are gone. If they're even close at all, if they're kind of hanging around 4th, 5th in the division, 6th, if it's close, none of these guys are going to go anywhere. They're going to stick it out. They're going to ride it out. That's just what they do. But if they're out of it, Tarasenko's gone. I mean, at the deadline, before the deadline, he might be the first guy to go because they've been talking about it for a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's out there. People know. So I don't think O'Reilly would get dealt. It's hard to trade a captain. It's hard to justify it to not only the team, to the fan base. Barbashev is interesting. He's coming up on needing a contract. So, even if they are still in it, and if you get somebody that needs him, that needs, a 3rd line center, or maybe they can bump up to the 2nd line, play a wing, and you can replace him with, I don't know, Josh Leivo or Clint Austin, or any, if any of you guys are playing up a little bit, they could, if they can take that hit and still feel fine, then, I mean, he could be a surprise move that they didn't have to make at the time, but that they could.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we know that the Blues have been perennial contenders the last few years, stemming from their cup run in 2019. So let's talk about this upcoming season. Where does this forward group match up with other teams in the Central?
I mean, it's got to be better than the Avs, right?
You could say that.
I know. I mean, the Avs are. I mean, the Avs are going to be, the front runner no matter what. Yeah. But I mean, after that, I mean, I would put the Blues right there with the rest of the division. Minnesota's probably gonna be right behind them, and Nashville, and I guess maybe Dallas. They're kind of interchangeable in that 3, 4, 5, and then, I mean, we got Winnipeg and Chicago and Arizona don't really count this year. So
Yeah.
nothing against them. It's just we're not even really paying attention to them. So
Yeah.
But I would say right there behind the Avs is probably I think it's probably where they're at.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one for sure. Because even
8+
Colorado
goal scorers,
Kadri.
right? Yeah, or 8+ 20 goal scorers, I should say.
Right.
Yeah,
There we go.
I have been putting Thomas twice in there, but yeah.
I read that question over about 12 times and I still missed it every time.
I read this over. Yeah, I read it over too. But he's a good player. He deserves double mention.
It was a great year, man. It was a great year.
Let him have it, right?
There you go. All right, let's move to the defense, who is still a pretty strong group as well. They re-signed Nick Leddy, who wasn't a guy that they were anticipating to be re-signed. At least I didn't think so. Signed a pretty big contract. What are your expectations for him? Because, like I said, I don't think he was expected to be be a big part of this defense. So what are your expectations going into this season?
Sure. I think when he came over last year, it was kind of an underwhelming move. And being re-signed, I wasn't in love with it. I understand it because they were just kind of, excuse me, they were just kind of needing to fill this void that they've had for the last really 2 years. Is they just need a partner, a steady, consistent offensive partner for Colton Parayko.
Yeah.
They tried it with Krug a little bit, just didn't really mesh. He played with Nico Mikkola, who is just probably a bottom, third line defenseman that they tried to play up a little bit, and it worked for a little bit. But once they brought Leddy along, it allowed Parayko to really focus on just being a defenseman, just being, defensively minded, not having to worry about bringing the puck, out of the defensive zone and through the neutral zone and trying to be offensive with it. Just kind of let him just really fall into his game more naturally, and just be more of I guess you could say a shutdown kind of guy. He still has some offensive capability, but, that's where he served best, is using his size down the defensive zone and being able to, he's got, he's 6'6", so his stick is just as long. He's able to just kind of use that a little bit more efficiently, and just not have to focus on so much on the offensive part of the game.
Yeah. Yeah, I think absolutely. I liked Nick Leddy in Detroit when he was there. Watched him a lot last season, and I think he's a good fit in St. Louis, and will be a good buffer guy kind of back there in between that first and second line.
Right.
All right, so last season, Justin Faulk kind of had a breakout campaign a bit with his best season since 2014-15. So has he emerged as the Blues' #1 defenseman, or are we still talking Colton Parayko there for that #1 spot?
On paper, it's Colton Parayko. As far as if you just looked at the roster, he's wearing the A, so you're gonna think that. But as far as like the actual #1 guy, it's Faulk. He's playing in the top pair with Krug. He is. I think he put up 16 goals last year, and he was just all over the ice. He was everywhere, shutting it down on the defensive end. He's quarterback in the second power play. I love Justin Faulk. He's one of those guys that you just don't really. He just brings his lunch pail to work. You don't really notice him.
Yep.
But he's there every single night, and he just is the first season here when he's brought in. Pietrangelo is still here. It's kind of a weird will they, won't they kind of, relationship that kind of, I think everybody on the inside knew Pietrangelo was gone, but everybody on the outside didn't know. And it's just really weird dynamic. And then once the dust kind of settled on that, he was allowed just to, kind of be himself. I think last year he just really grew into his role. Had an awesome season. So as far as the #1 guy, I think it really is Justin Faulk.
Absolutely. I thought he fit in really well on that top pairing and had a great season last year. So I'd love to see him build upon that.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. He was a little bit, there was talk about it being a bad move when they got him because he wasn't very good in the first season. But definitely, like you said, grew into that role, and now he is definitely worth whatever he's getting paid. And I agree. I think he's the number one defenseman. That's why I put that question in. So yeah, I agree too. Okay, let's talk about the matchup. Like, talk about the forwards. They're saying they're probably around the top. Where do you rank this defense in the second division?
I'd put it more in the middle. I mean, you're still falling behind the Avs again on this one, unfortunately. That's going to be the story of the season right there.
Yeah.
But I mean, you still got the Preds probably ahead of them, with Yossi and Ekholm, Fabro, and now McDonough over there. Yeah. Minnesota still got a solid D-core. Dallas is still good even without Klingberg. And then I'd probably work in the Blues somewhere in there around the bottom half, honestly. They're just kind of leaky defensively, or they have been. And you've got basically your left side, I guess your top four lefts, you've got, Krug and Leddy, just smaller guys, not necessarily you got to have these big guys running it, but, you need, look at Justin Faulk. I mean, he's not that much bigger, maybe 6'1", but it still matters. So they can pick on that left side when they need to, against your top two pairings. Yeah. So they're going to need to step it up this year, to kind of move up the rankings there. But I would say probably in the middle towards the bottom half right now.
Okay. Yeah. I keep forgetting McDonough is with Nashville right now. And that's just going to be absolutely crazy to see him on, the number 2, number 3 pairing there with them this season. So man, that defensive core just got so much better. All right, well, let's talk goaltending. All right, so the Blues are going back to Jordan Binnington for the 2022-23 season after trading away Ville Husso. Will they see the good Binnington, or are they going to see the chaotic, manic Binnington?
So I don't think you're going to get Cup run Binnington. That was pretty unreal. But the season right after, I mean, the Blues were in first place, kind of just running through the league, running through the Central, especially until COVID shut everything down, and then they went to the bubble, and they just got rocked. And so that's what everybody remembers from that season. But he kept them not afloat. Like he really led the team that season. So I think you're going to get. I don't think you're going to get the bad. I don't think you're going to get the great. I think you're going to get a solid, good to really good, maybe a B+, A-. You're going to get a stretch of his little dominance, when he's really confident, and you're probably going to get a stretch where, you're not so sure, and he's, chucking bottles and whatnot, but but if that's what it takes to get him going right, then let's do it. But, I mean, if he can resemble anything close to, that 2020 season, 2019, 2020, and then, last year in the playoffs, he was on a different level. So, so I think we're going to get something along those lines, mostly because really, like right now, there's no safety net behind him. He's the one getting the money. So we really haven't seen a great season from him since he got that contract. So it's good. Basically, this is his chance, and he should step up. If he doesn't, there's going to be have a lot of conversations to be had. But yeah, like I said, there's no safety net. Husso's gone. You got Greiss in there now, and then after that, I mean, we've got a couple young guys that would basically just have to start all over again and try this experiment again with.
Yeah, you don't have Charlie Lindgren either, who is part of that. So you mentioned Thomas Greiss. What are your expectations for him? I mean, it's funny because they basically just swapped backups or stars, whatever it was, because Greiss was in Detroit. They didn't trade for him; they just signed him. But it's just funny how that kind of worked. I just realized that they just basically just switched.
Swap goaltenders.
So, what are your expectations for Greiss as the backup?
I mean, I try to keep him low. I mean, he He didn't have a great year last year, but it's hard to have a good year when you're playing on a rough team. Not a great defensive front right in front of you. But he's got to do his part too. So all I would say is to just stay consistent. You're going to get 20, 25 starts, hopefully at the most. So, just keep the team in it. Just be consistent. Don't be unspectacular. Don't go above and beyond. Let everyone know what to expect from you every single night.
Yeah.
I think you can certainly expect unspectacular every night from Thomas Greiss. But no, I think consistency was the big downfall in Detroit too, right? Like he wasn't able to come in and give Nedeljkovic the much needed games off, because usually he would come in and stuff would fall apart. Not always, he had his moments.
Right.
But again, going back 2 years, I was hoping the Red Wings would have kept Bernays over Greiss, but here we are, and now we have Husso and Nedeljkovic. So thank you, St. Louis.
I hope it works, man. I hope it works out for you.
I hope it works out for you as well, Marcus. All right. Well, we talked about the forwards, talked about the defense. Now let's get your thoughts on the goaltending. Where do they match up in the Central?
Goaltending's been kind of a mess this offseason, man. It's been just a shuffle
for everyone. Yeah,
I know. So you've got really your mainstays, or you've got Hellebuyck and Saros kind of holding down the 1-2, and after that, who knows? It could be Binnington, could be Ottinger.
Yeah.
It could be Fleury. He's kind of taking steps back, and he gets a little too happy in the crease, and he can't catch up like he used to. Don't get me wrong, still great, gonna make some spectacular plays, but just he's a little easier to beat than he used to be.
Yeah.
Kemper's gone, so they brought in
Greiss. I can never pronounce his name. From
Georgiev. That's right.
Georgiev.
I was blanking.
I always want to call him Georgie.
Alexander Georgiev.
But we've all found out pronunciation is not my strong suit.
We knew what you meant.
Yeah.
But really, it's after Hellebuyck and Saros. I would put that you could flip them between 1 and 2, 1A, 1B. But after that, it's a mess.
Yeah.
So
it
could be Binnington. Binnington could be there. He could be at the bottom of the barrel. It's tough to say.
Yeah, and I think that's part of, that one question, like what Binnington are you going to see? Because if you get the Binnington of 2, 3, 4 years ago, you're golden. You got probably one of the best goaltenders in the division. And if you get the one of, what was it, the middle of the half of the season last year or the start of the season, he was kind of nothing to write home about. So.
Basically 2/3 of the season now.
Yeah.
You need the one that was playoffs there. It took net back. So we'll see. It's gonna be interesting to watch all the goaltending throughout the NHL this year, because there's a lot of goaltenders moving around.
Oh, there's a ton.
Insane
this year.
It's hard to keep track of.
Yeah.
What's good is Vancouver stayed the same. Still got that. All right, we're going to go into our quick fire round, Marcus, and this is where we're going to throw some questions at you, and you respond in a one-word answer or a couple sentences to explain. But these are just going to be quick, just to flow through here. We're just going to each go back and forth. So just to start, what is the biggest storyline or question mark going into the season for the St. Louis Blues?
The guy we just talked about, Jordan Binnington. It basically just rests on his shoulders, man. Whichever way he goes, the team's going to go.
All right.
Who are going to be the St. Louis Blues 1 or 2 breakout stars this year?
That's a tough one, because like we talked about, they had 8 or 9. I don't know whatever you guys.
They all broke.
At this point, it might be 12.
Yeah.
My picks are Buchnevich and Thomas, just to break out even more, to really get on a larger scale. I really think that they got it in them, and they're going to be the big boys to step up this year.
I'm really surprised you didn't pick Thomas and Thomas.
Yeah, Thomas.
I thought about it.
All right. Player that needs to bounce back from last season.
Jordan Binnington.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, pretty good one. Yeah.
Who is going to be the St. Louis Blues X Factor?
Jordan Binnington.
All the way.
I love it.
You can't go to the next question though. So.
It really is, man. I mean, I don't keep harping on him, but he really is, the most crucial factor to this team's success this year.
If 1,000% agree.
Yeah, if he gets off to a hot start and he gets a lot of confidence built up, then they're going to be right where they were last year. And if he struggles, man, it's going to be tough. It might be sinking.
Yeah. I agree.
All right, well, this one you can't say Binnington. Rookie or prospect that could surprise and make the roster of training camp.
If we're looking for a surprise, that would be Zachary Bolduc. There's been a lot of talk of him, kind of once the season ended and kind of starting going into camp this year, that he's got a legit shot. It'd be a 9-game trial kind of thing, and then likely we get sent back down after that. But likely though is going to be Jake Neighbors and Scott Perunovich. I mean, they've got spots in the lineup. They just got to go out and prove it, basically.
I
like Bolduc. That's a good.
I like Bolduc too. I'm really looking forward to watching Neighbors though in preseason and see where he is coming out of that camp. So
for sure.
All right. Give us one other player that fans should be watching that we have yet to mention. I
myself am going to be watching Klim Kostin.
Like Klim.
Basically his last shot. They signed him to a 1 year one way this offseason. Basically is just put up or shut up with him now. He hasn't, and now to his defense, he hasn't been getting a ton of opportunity. But he got into 40 games last year and was super inconsistent. You didn't really feel like you knew what you were going to get from night in, night out. So he's got potential. He's a nasty guy out there on the ice. So this is going to be a shot to do it.
Nice. I like that call out.
Yeah. All right. This is going to be a tough one because there's so many guys. Who will lead the team in scoring from the forwards?
Robert Thomas and Robert Thomas. I think it's got to be Tarasenko if he's with him the whole year. I mean, it just makes sense. But it could be Kyrou, it could be Thomas.
Yeah. So many. Yeah.
I think that's a good problem to have.
Yes. You can't pick the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
And on defense.
I think it's going to be Justin Faulk. I mean, we put up 16 goals last year and 30 some assists, so it should just fall right into place again for him. Same role, same team. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Who is one player that could be traded before the deadline this season?
I mean, if they're, like we said earlier, if they're out of contention, it's got to be Tarasenko. But if they're kind of floating around in the middle, they could still benefit from making a move and didn't have to. It could be Barbashev, just simply because they're just going to run into so much, cap crunch next year that they're going to be forced to make a move, and he could be the casualty there.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a huge log jam at forward coming up soon.
For sure. All right, let's get to a fun one here. Bold prediction or a hot take for the coming season?
I don't know how hot or bold it is, but I really think Kyrou could put up 40 goals. That
I like
that. I think that would pretty much solidify him as earning that next contract, similar to what Robert Thomas got, and just really being a star player for the team. I think they haven't had a 40-goal scorer. It's been a minute. It's been 7 or 8 years if Leddy did it. And so, I mean, before that, I think it was like 2007, 2008. So, so I really think that he could do that. But just, man's got to stay consistent.
Yeah.
I like that prediction. Like you said, when we talked about it earlier, like that consistency, had he stayed consistent the whole year, he would have been on pace to be close to that. So, if he can figure that out, he's going to be a dangerous player this year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, final question for you here, Marcus. Where will the Blues finish in the standings, and will they make the playoffs?
I think that they will make the playoffs. It's either going to be second or third. I mean, pretty much just a repeat of last year. Avs are going to be in first. I don't, unless there's some injury that comes up or something else happens, that it's just kind of, it's their run right now.
Yeah.
But second or third, and that way we can avoid, trying to play them in the playoffs for at least a round.
That would help. That would help.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind seeing another Minnesota St. Louis playoff round one either, because those are always entertaining games.
That was fun, man. Yeah, that was
a lot of fun.
Good one. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna move on to our favorite segment in this show that we normally do, and Matt and I are hosting the normal podcast, but that's our article of the day. And Matt and I aren't going to offer any articles, but Marcus, we want you to offer one from your Blues writing team. Now, it can be your own, but let's feature a St. Louis Blues article today. So what do you have for us?
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, I thought about doing my own, but that's just a little too much airtime.
Well, that's all right. A lot of people have been, but that's all right. So
no, but my guy Mike Meyer over here just put out Blues 5 burning questions for 2022-23. First one's Tarasenko's future, which we've talked about already.
Yeah.
It's up in the air. What they're gonna know by the trade deadline which way it's gonna go. And with O'Reilly and Kyrou's contracts basically coming due, they're going to have to make a decision. And so, that's going to be looming over the entire season, no matter which way they go. As far as which, his second question is which defenseman will be moved. That's, we all anticipated, with all this, Matthew Tkachuk sweepstakes that we went through, it was a big letdown. They assumed that we had to move somebody in there because they've got so many left-handed defensemen between Krug and Leddy and Perunovich and Mikula and Scandella. I mean, there's just too much. There's not enough to go around. So, Scandella is the easy answer, but it could, end up being Krug with Scott Perunovich coming up. They're basically really similar players.
Yeah.
So it's tough to justify having two basically the same guy. In one unit. It could be one, could be none, but they're gonna have to do something because there's just too much going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just kind of what we had, talked about a minute ago too. Which Binnington are we going to see? Is it going to be the Cup run Binnington, or is it, going to be what we got in this last season? It's really just, the season kind of rests on his shoulders as far as, like we said, the Blues' successes and failures are going to kind of start with him. So I hate to keep putting weight on the guy, but
really he's a big storyline.
It's
a
true.
Big one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think that's definitely the biggest microscope slide for the St. Louis Blues this year. That everyone's going to be studying. So
So Mike Myers, good. He's a great writer, so definitely it's a good shout out for him. He's the Blues credentialed writer this year, so you got some stuff hopefully from the arena from him, so he can get there. So that's gonna be awesome.
Right? Yeah, we're stoked for him. That's so awesome, man. I'm jealous.
Yeah. We'll get you there one day, Marcus. But before that, I just want to say, hey, thank you again for joining us. That's gonna do it for today's episode of the Hockey Writers Podcast season preview shows with Marcus Ashpaugh and the St. Louis Blues. Thank you again. Make sure you're following all of our Blues writers at thehockeywriters.com. Make sure you're signing up for all of our shows on our YouTube shows. Subscribe so you can follow along with all of our season previews. Sign up for the Morning Skate at morningskate.io to get all of your daily hockey news delivered to your inbox for free. And make sure you're following all of our writers and our hockey writers' social media pages as well. That's going to do it for this edition of the Hockey Writers Podcast. We'll see you next time.